but it was miserable. I still had to get up early, put on a tie, go into an office, which was usually in a horrible, cramped old building with the heating turned up way too high and those white styrofoam ceiling tiles, only they'd all gone yellow with age, and sit there all day doing nothing when I could have been doing literally anything else. I was never in an office long enough to get to know anyone or share in the banter. I just drank lots of tea and read a book and did pointless mental exercises like figure out exactly how much I was being paid per second just to sit there. You could probably put the whole NHS on one computer system and give the doctors those pad things from Star Trek, and then there wouldn't be any paper records and I could have just made fish soup at home. And it turns out that a lot of people feel that way about their jobs. The anthropologist David Graeber was famous for his analysis of so-called bullshit jobs. Not just hard jobs. Those are something else, and I've had a few of them too. In order to qualify as a bullshit job, the person doing it has to believe that there isn't really any point, but they have to pretend like there is. According to a 2015 poll by YouGov, 37% of British workers believe that their job makes no meaningful contribution to the world. And maybe that's not surprising, because the main products of the British economy since the Thatcher years have been sarcasm and transphobia. But it might not just be cruel Britannia. Supposedly in the Netherlands, it's 40%. We might want to take those numbers with a pinch of salt. That poll asked 849 adults, which is hardly every working person in Britain. But when Graeber wrote a little article about bullshit jobs, it went viral and got translated into over a dozen languages. He got a ton of emails from people being like, yes, my job is nonsense, which suggests that it might have struck a chord. I certainly found it relatable. That data entry job was pure bullshit. It was just a test of my mental stamina. How long can you sit here pretending to do something before you give up? And it's the pretending that's exhausting, which is kind of a weird thing for me to say, because now pretending is my job. There's quite a lot of pretending that goes into making this show. Plus, like I said, I'm also an actor, and that is literally just playing pretend. Diary of a Workaday Actor. Dear Diary, today I did a commercial for a product I've never used. I had to pick up a jug of water and put it down in front of the camera 27 times. Then I had to throw a bottle into a bin 17 times, missing in exactly the same way every time. I've never used the product before, I don't expect I ever will, and I wasn't paid very much to do it. All in all, it was a great day. When I'm acting though, I'm pretending on my own terms. My first job out of drama school was doing voiceover for an accounting firm's internal corporate video. And it was a blast. I had a great day. I didn't write the script or direct it, but I had creative control over my performance, and that counts for a lot. Bullshit jobs require you to pretend for your boss. Even if you know and they know that there's no point in you being there, you still have to do it. Someone else owns your time, so you just have to sit there and use it up on pointless tasks till the end of the day. It grinds down your self-esteem until you just feel like crap, but you can't admit that. You can't say out loud, this job sucks and I hate it, because if you do, you might lose it. So you have to be like, oh yeah, I am really passionate about data entry. I just love getting data and entering it. Sometimes I do data entry on the weekends. I'm just weird like that. Like, I got a dog, I named him Data Entry. Like, what? No, I don't mind that the office smells of fish soup. I love it. This is closely connected to an idea you might have heard of called emotional labor. It was thought up by a sociologist called Arlie Hochschild in the 80s, who famously did a study of Delta Airlines flight attendants. They had to manage the emotions of their passengers, always having a smile and a helpful attitude, and a smile and a comforting presence, and a smile, and a smile, and a smile, and a smile, and a smile. Technically speaking, my data entry job didn't involve emotional labor, even though I did have to pretend like I was working. In order for it to count as emotional labor, the job has to be public-facing, and the performance has to be something your boss can monetize. The smile on that face is part of what keeps them coming back to Delta. It is literally what you are being paid for. Not all emotional labor is bad. A nurse, for instance, might need to comfort a patient as part of their job, and that's okay. The question Hochschild asks though is, if Delta Airlines is paying you to smile, in what sense is that smile really yours? If your job is to produce an emotion and your boss owns everything you produce at work, then that emotion isn't really yours, it's theirs. Those flight attendants had to stuff their own feelings of boredom and resentment down inside and ignore them because it wasn't what they were being paid to experience, and it really affected their feelings. They felt like work robots. In a similar way, if you have to pretend like your job is meaningful when deep down you know that it's bullshit, that's your employer laying claim to the lens through which you view reality, to your values and what you think constitutes meaningful work. So no wonder it's upsetting. The opposite of a bullshit job is a hero job, a job that absolutely has to be done no matter what. If you're talking about a hero job, you had better be praising it and the people doing it. The two that spring to mind are the military and the police. It's considered bad form to question those institutions, even though if you ask any troop or cop, they'll tell you the job involves a fair amount of bullshit. Here in the UK, we're starting to see the idea of hero jobs used as a tool of workplace discipline. When the pandemic started, we were all encouraged to stand on our doorsteps and clap for the NHS. There are big banners up in London now thanking our heroes. But many of the people cheering on the NHS now were absolutely lambasting junior doctors when they went on strike in 2015. Healthcare staff have for almost a decade pointed out that austerity and public sector pay freezes have left them dangerously overworked and underpaid, but the government still won't give them a pay rise. When teachers' unions, which is to say teachers, expressed doubt about the safety of opening schools again, the Daily Mail ran the headline, "Let teachers be heroes." If your job is a heroic one, then anything that stops you doing it is villainous. If you're a hero, you're not a worker, so you don't get control over your workplace. You get a heroic cause to die for. I could have gone on getting paid for nothing, pretending to work in that office. And eventually I could have started stealing NHS valor. Like, yes, I did data entry for the NHS. Please, ladies, there's only one of them. But I couldn't handle it. It wore me down with its sheer pointlessness. So I quit. As I soon discovered, though, the only thing worse than a bullshit job that does nothing is a bullshit job that hurts people. This probably doesn't count as a job since I was technically never paid, but a few years ago I went to live in New Zealand for a few months over the summer. I spent most of my savings on the flights, so I thought I'll get a job for a few months, make a bit of money, and then travel around having fun. But you know me, I had to try and be clever about it. I thought that if I got a job where I wore a tie, I'd make more than all those suckers working in a bar or picking fruit. So I signed up with a dodgy company selling door-to-door insurance. I honestly couldn't tell you what kind of insurance we were supposed to be selling. I think it was for some very specific financial thing. But in any case, the real business was getting people to sign over their contact details so we could sell them on. That's why the most important bit of the form was actually the little box they had to tick to say that we were legally allowed to do that. Which we were encouraged, by the way, to just gloss over, like, yeah, that's no big deal, just go ahead and tick that there and sign that at the bottom, yeah, in blood, if you can. The work was on commission, and I was told that I could make a few $100s a day if I was good at it. I was pretty good at improv, and I liked talking to people, so I thought, what the hell? They sent me out with one of their best guys to learn the ropes, covering a fancy neighborhood in Auckland. And it sucked. We only signed up 2 people all day. The first was a guy who didn't speak English, and the second was a heavily pregnant woman who clearly just wanted us to leave. My colleague pressured her into signing the form, and I honestly just felt ashamed of myself. Walking back alongside a motorway after a long day of trying to sell pointless insurance, tired and dehydrated, I wondered how many other people did bullshit jobs like this one. Why did they exist in the first place? How come so many people were stuck doing useless things, or unemployed completely, when there's so much work in the world that needs to be done? We've got a hell of a lot of climate-related stuff to do. Feels like we could squeeze a few jobs out of that. We need nurses, we need teachers, we need carers. Some people like to answer that question by saying that young people aren't doing those jobs. They're all doing useless degrees in media studies and critical race theory and starting Patreon campaigns and inventing 5